Rockies lose 13-3. Just one of those classic Coors Field games in their series opener against the Cincinnati Reds. We'll break it all down on tonight's episode of the Locked On Rockies POSTCAST. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rockies POSTCAST, powered by Mile High Sports, part of Locked On Sports Denver on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, what is going on, everybody? I am your host, Aniello Piro. Hope everybody is doing well out there as we get ready to recap a baseball game. I guess you could call it that, a 13-3 loss for the Colorado Rockies. And as always, if you want to give me a follow on social media, I'm at Media by AP on the good old Twitter sphere. I should probably tweet that out here in a second, get some Rockies fans in here as we chit-chat about this 13-3 loss. But before we get into it, folks, tonight's episode of the Locked On Rockies POSTCAST is presented by our friends over at Game Time. Today's episode, let me not reread that. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONMLB with our friends over at Game Time. And I'll tell you why I love Game Time a little bit later on in the program. And of course, folks, this is Locked On Sports, your team every day. And if this is your first time tuning into one of our podcasts, we just started like last week, so you're really not late to the party whatsoever. We're going to be here after just about each and every Colorado Rockies home game, or not home game, excuse me, regular season game. I was going to say postseason, but I don't think there's going to be a postseason with this ball club. Although we will talk about their record against some of the better teams in Major League Baseball. The Cincinnati Reds, their opponent tonight, not exactly one of those teams. So we'll dive into this game. Obviously, got to talk about Ryan Feltner. Brendan Rodgers stays hot offensively, really the only source of offense for this Rockies team here in tonight's series opener against Cincinnati. And the Rockies offense as a whole collectively struggling tonight. So we'll dive into it all throughout the course of the program. As always, be sure to follow me on the good old socials at Media by AP and smash that subscribe button here on the brand new Locked On Denver channel. And I know there's some plans in the work for the other Denver sports teams. I won't spill the team too much, but all I'm saying is if you're a fan of Locked On Sports, if you're a fan of Colorado sports, make sure to hit that subscribe button and away we go. But the Rockies tonight, as we said, a 13-3 loss to those Cincinnati Reds, drops the Rockies record now to 21-38 on the season. And stop me if you've heard this before. I'm probably going to have to talk about this. I shouldn't say it like I dread it. I actually enjoy doing these shows. But we're going to be talking about bad pitching a lot in the time that we're doing these shows together. And that was the case once again here tonight. Ryan Feltner, 4 1/3 innings pitched, 10 hits, 8 runs, all 8 of them earned, no walks. So I guess that's a positive. No walks for Ryan Feltner, and only 3 strikeouts. He gives up the home run. But again, that 4 1/3 inning pitch, 10 hits, 10 earned runs. That is not a recipe for success. I don't care if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers, who we just talked about over the course of the weekend. I don't care if you're the Cincinnati Reds, who was the opponent here tonight. I don't care if you're the New York Mets, a team that I followed for virtually my entire life. It doesn't matter if you're the Colorado Rockies. If your starting pitcher is only going to go 4 1/3 and give up 10 hits and 8 earned runs, 9 times out of 10, you're losing that game and losing convincingly, which is exactly what we saw here tonight for the Rockies. And look, man, it's frustrating to say the least. And I know looking back to that series against the Dodgers, for example, right, the Rockies end up losing that series 2-1, but I believe the Dodgers only scored, well, I think they only scored 4 runs yesterday, excuse me. But for the most part, the point that I'm trying to make is the Rockies starting pitching was pretty sound. You were able, you lost those games because of a lack of offense. And look, you're going up against Yamamoto and some of these, this deep Dodgers bullpen in some of those games, right? So, I'm not going to hold it against them. For our guy Mark Knudsen over at milehighsports.com wrote a great column about it. Like, yeah, you go 1 for 2 in the series against the Dodgers, but they're playing good baseball against good teams for the most part, right? We had talked about that series win against the Guardians, series win against the Rangers, a sweep at that, and then they had a good series against the Philadelphia Phillies, who are the hottest team in baseball right now. And to come home for not a homestand, but a 3-game series against the Cincinnati Reds, and to essentially just have your team taken out of it from the jump, it is pretty disheartening. And you know what? I got to give credit where credit is due. Eleris Montero actually was responsible for the first run of the game, and the Rockies ended up going up 1-0 in that bottom of the first inning. So there was, a little bit of optimism. I know it's only one run, right? But you got out to a pretty good start. And then, everything from there just ends up falling apart for the Colorado Rockies, in large part because of the starting pitching. And look, I hate to pick on Ryan Feltner, but like I said, you're not going to really give yourself many opportunities to win these games when you're giving up 8 earned runs in less than 5 innings pitched, right? I mean, you only recorded that 1 out in the 5th inning before things really got out of hand. And I mean, Cincinnati, no runs in the first, they score a run in the second, and they just pile it on in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th innings. 3 runs in the 3rd, 3 runs in the 4th. They added another one in the 5th, and then they added, the creme de la creme there, 3 more runs in the 6th inning before eventually to, whatever runs there in the 9th inning. So they get 18 hits collectively on the night. So and here's the thing, the Rockies actually got some base hits. They had 9 hits on their own. They score 3 runs, obviously all 3 of those runs coming off the Brendan Rodgers home run. But the Rockies were putting the ball in play, just whether it was situational hitting or, just going up against a tough opponent on a tough night here in the Cincinnati Reds, who were just locked in from the jump, just not a recipe for success here for the Rockies. And it's frustrating. It really is frustrating because, I'm going to say this a million times over the course of these shows. It's one thing to lose games. It's another to just get blown out in these games. And, what's interesting about that is the Rockies run in that bottom of the 1st inning from Eleris Montero, which came with 2 outs and Brendan Rodgers on second. Rodgers only scores that run because when he got on base, the right fielder, let me see if I could pull up his name here real quick. I'm not extremely familiar with the Cincinnati Reds roster at the moment. Shame on me. Jake Farley, he botched it out there in right field, and, he slipped, he fell, the ball trickled to the wall, and Brendan Rodgers ends up on second when he should have ended up on first. So, the Eleris Montero single, which was a nice piece of hitting. I mean, right up the middle, exactly what you want to see from a guy like Montero, only really gets the run home because Brendan Rodgers ends up on second because of those errors from Cincinnati in the 1st inning. So, it's one of those situations where, yeah, you got out to the early lead, but it was also a byproduct of Cincinnati's struggles and shortcomings as much as it was the Rockies being able to, drive a runner home. And like I said, a tip of the cap to Montero and Brendan Rodgers for the heads-up baseball. But when it's all said and done, that's just not going to be a recipe for success here moving forward for the Colorado Rockies. So as we said, top of the 2nd inning, Tyler Stevenson, he grounds into a double play, and it looks like the Rockies are going to be able to limit the damage there with just the 1 run in the 2nd. They did end up getting out of that inning with the score tied at 1-1, but then it all ballooned over in that 3rd inning, as we had mentioned here, where the Cincinnati Reds go on to score 3 runs. Elly De La Cruz had a double, his 11th of the season, sharp line drive to center field. Will Benson, scores. That made the score 2-1. Jaimir Condrillo, I hope I said that correctly, Candelario, homer as well in that 2nd inning, in the top of the 3rd inning there for the Cincinnati Reds. And that ended up making it 4-1 Cincinnati. And at that point, you're down a handful of runs. You've got an opportunity to get back in this game. The Rockies offense unable to respond. That's actually not true. The Rockies in the bottom of the 3rd inning, Brendan Rodgers homers to left on that fly ball to left center field. That knots it up I'm all over the place today. I just came from the game, so I was watching it in person, and now I'm having to digitally kind of re-give it back to you. So apologies there. He homers, Brendan Rodgers does his 3rd of the season. That cuts it to 4-2, and then the Rockies get within a single run. Jacob Stallings, who is the designator hitter tonight, he drove a line drive to center field. That scored a run, and the Rockies, going into that 4th inning, the score was 4-3, and then this is when the trouble really strikes here for Ryan Feltner and company. Cincinnati goes up 6-3. Will Benson gets a triple. Tyler Stevenson scores. Jonathan India scores. So there's 2 runs there, and then it continues, right? TJ Friendly singles as well. That makes it 7-3, so on and so forth. And, then you get to the 5th inning, and it just continues to balloon, right? At the end of the 5th inning, it's 8-2. Top of the 6th inning, 9-2. The end of that inning ends up 11-3. And it's just one of those situations where, or I should say 11-3, where things just continue to balloon for the Rockies. And look, it's not entirely on the Rockies offense to match the output of what the other team is doing. Obviously, in theory, that's exactly what you're looking for with this Rockies club. But, as I said, if your starting pitcher and Ryan Feltner is going to, just get shelled essentially from the get-go, your opportunity to win these games is going to become, it's just going to continue to dwindle as the game goes along. So a disappointing outing for Ryan Feltner, 1-5 on the year now. His ERA balloons to 6.22. You don't like to see that. And we know that the starting pitching's actually been all right for the Rockies as of late, but still, all in all, just not a good showing from Ryan Feltner. On Cincinnati's end, Andrew Abbott, he does a decent job out here for Cincinnati. He finishes with 6 innings pitched. He gives up 7 hits, but only those 3 earned runs. So that's what I'm saying. You give up, more than 5, 6, 7 hits. That's not exactly a great start, but you're able to limit the damage, adding those 6 strikeouts. He gives up the home run. But all in all, Abbott able to limit the damage here for the Cincinnati Reds. So a disappointing outing for the Rockies, in particular starting pitcher Ryan Feltner. But I was also disappointed with the Rockies offense. We mentioned Brendan Rodgers was able to do his thing. Some of the other guys were able to do their thing. But just a disappointing game all in all, I would say, for the Colorado Rockies offense. So let's hit a break. When we come back, we'll do a little bit of a deep dive into this Rockies offense. I know he didn't play tonight, but I've also got some thoughts about Chris Bryant. We'll do that when we come back right here on the Locked On Rockies postcast. All right. Let me tell you about our friends over at Game Time here real quick, folks. And you're going to want to listen up because our friends over at Game Time, they have got you covered. Talk about baseball, talk about basketball, talk about hockey. I know the Nuggets and the Avalanche are out right now, but if you're listening in any of the states where, you've got Edmonton, you've got the Mavericks, you've got the Boston Celtics, right? Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app will actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes all the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Browse through the Game Time app. Be sure to check out all of their options because there's a lot here, folks. Last-minute deals. Let me tell you about some of these last-minute deals, folks. Save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, all that good stuff. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. You can even get these things called zone deals, which is you save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats for you. And the best part, guys, is the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Some of the other features on the Game Time app, you get a perfect view of your seat so you know exactly where you're going to be sitting when you buy your ticket to the game. Let's just go on and on and on. The lowest ticket price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Let me say that again. The lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. You've also got Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. You got to love it, guys. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms, they do apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. And look, I'm a Game Time user. My buddies are Game Time users. My friends were going to Denver Nuggets playoff games, Avalanche playoff games, and the only place that they're looking to get their tickets last minute is on that Game Time app. And look, it's 2024. You don't got to buy your tickets weeks, days in advance, right? Wake up the day of, see what Game Time has to offer. If you're not feeling the prices, check periodically throughout the day, because when it's all said and done, you're not going to get a better price than for tickets to sporting events, concerts, all that good stuff, any event going around in town. Than with our friends over at Game Time. Be sure to use that code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms, they do apply. All right, Aniello Piro here. Welcome on back into your Locked On Rockies postcast. And real quick, one more thing about our friends over at Game Time. I'm actually going to Wrigley Field at the end of this month to see the Mets take on the Cubs. So you best believe I will be using the Game Time app with promo code LOCKEDONMLB when I get out to Chicago to go check out the friendly confines of Wrigley Field. So you got to love that. Our friends over at Game Time know what they're doing. But all right, back to business here. The Colorado Rockies, man. Just a disappointing 13-3 loss. As we mentioned, it drops their record on the year to 21-38. Cincinnati improves to 27-33. So a near 500 ball club. And as I got home right around the 8th inning here, leaving Coors Field. That's the other thing. If you're just watching us for the first time, you're catching us after the fact, I'm going to be at a lot of these home games, getting that inside access, getting that up close and personal front row seat to this Colorado Rockies team. I want to work on trying to maybe get some player interviews, some different types of conversation going on the program here. So we're going to try to take a full 360-degree approach with this Colorado Rockies team. And the reason I say that is I was happy I got home when I did, because I flipped on the Rockies TV broadcast, and Corey Sullivan and Drew Goodman and Spilly and company actually made some great points. And forgive me if I'm misspeaking the second part of this, because I was really interested in the first part, but the Rockies against teams with a record above 500 this year, right? And above 500, that usually translates to pretty darn good. The Rockies actually have a winning record against those teams. They're 14-12, the Rockies are. And then without doing the math in my head, I believe against teams under 500, this now includes the Cincinnati Reds, I believe a mere 7 wins on the season for Colorado against teams that are sub 500. So that's pretty disappointing. And we talked about it, a great series against Texas, great series against Philadelphia, competitive against Los Angeles Dodgers. I know they lost 2 of 3, but they were competitive in that series. They take care of business at home against Cleveland last week. And to just see Colorado come out and look, I know it's one game of 162, but the Cincinnati Reds, are maybe they make the playoffs, right? But probably not. This was a very winnable game that very quickly became unwinnable for this Colorado Rockies team, which is just so disappointing. And as we talked about, the starting pitching, in my opinion, is 9 times out of 10 going to be pitching in general, I should say, rather 9 times out of 10 is going to be the reason to blame for the Rockies' losses and their struggles game in and game out. But I also think tonight, the Rockies just did not do a great job of getting timely hits. And in that series opener against Los Angeles, right, the Rockies on Friday scored 4 runs, which is not, a ton of runs in a Major League Baseball game, but it was just enough. And the reason why the Rockies were able to win that game is because those 4 runs came in timely clutch situations, paired with solid competitive starting pitching against one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. And tonight, the Rockies, anything but that. 7 runners left on base, 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position. And we talked about it. That first run of the game where Brendan Rodgers came home to score on that Eleris Montero single to center field, that's a byproduct of the Cincinnati Reds, misplay on defense. And so, look, the Rockies get 9 hits, but just not a lot of clutch hitting tonight from Colorado. Now, look, it is worth noting Ryan McMahon was not in the lineup tonight. That's a routine day off from everything that I've, been able to gather around the club right now, and well-deserving. Ryan McMahon's been arguably one of, if not the most consistent offensive player for the Rockies this season. And he's also having his best season as a Major League ball player. But outside of that, just not a lot of depth from this Rockies lineup. Ezekiel Tovar stays hot. He has a double and it ups his batting average to 295. And I'll wrap with some thoughts on Ezekiel Tovar, man, because this kid's the truth. This kid is the absolute truth. The Rockies got one of those guys in Ezekiel Tovar. I was listening to my guys, Sean Drotar and Sandy Clough on Mile High Sports Radio earlier today, and you can make the argument that Ezekiel Tovar was the best shortstop, period, in all of Major League Baseball for the month of May. When was the last time you were able to say that about a Rockies player being the best player at their individual position in recent memory? Nolan Arenado? I don't know if we ever said that about Trevor Story. Todd Helton maybe at one point in his career, but players like this don't come around often. And the Rockies not only have one, they have him for an extended period of time after extending him to a lucrative contract that'll buy out his ARB years in the first couple of seasons of free agency. So Tovar, 1 hit and 5 at-bats tonight, kind of a garbage double, but at least he still gets on base at 807 OPS. So he's looking good. We talked about Brendan Rodgers. He had the best night for the Rockies. He has the home run, picks up 2 hits, the RBI, and he hit that home run to arguably the deepest part of the ballpark, that left center nook. I believe they said 425 was the distance on that one. And, you love to see that from Brendan Rodgers, a guy who's been a little up and down, hasn't exactly lived up to the billing, in regards to what he was supposed to be when he came up to the big leagues. But, Right now he's playing well. Potential trade candidate for the Rockies if they do want to ship off some of these guys in the middle of their career and try to build, around Tovar and Doyle and all these other guys. We shall see. Elias Diaz 0 for 4 tonight with a strikeout. We mentioned Montero. He gets the one hit, and look, he did his job to an extent. He gets a run home, so 1 hit, 1 RBI for Montero. Brenton Doyle added 3 hits of his own, but it really didn't amount to much for the Rockies here. And look, a lot of these guys did get hit. Stallings got a hit. Bouchard got a hit. And outside of that, it was crickets for the most part, but just a lack of timely hitting for the Rockies, I would say. And, it's just frustrating when you feel stuck, right? And that was one of those games where it was funny. I was leaving the ballpark. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to out anybody, but one of the fellow media members said, Hey, you're leaving. You're one of us. You got to watch this too. And I said, fellas, I got to go talk about it. I know that these guys got to write about it as well, but I got to go talk about it. And so, it is what it is. Like I'm along for the ride. I'm along for the journey. And here's my optimistic point of view. It's 1 of 162. Doesn't matter if you lose 13-3. Doesn't matter if you lose 4-3. A loss is a loss, right? So you hope that this team can now roll over into tomorrow's game against the same opponent, second game of the series, and hopefully give you something a little bit more offensively. And frankly, hopefully you hope that your starting pitcher just doesn't take you out of the game as that occurred here tonight. And so we'll have to see, there's a lot of moving parts with this Rockies team. We know that they're young. We know that they're, it's a combination of those young players with some of those journeyman players. But at the end of the day, Tovar gets a double, so that's something to hang your hat on. Brendan Rodgers with the home runs, it wasn't all negative. It's not like they got no hit, right? They put up 9 base hits of the game, just, 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position. The home run's great, but what did you get really beyond that? And I can't help but wonder when you're down, what were they down here? When you're down, multiple runs in the middle of the game, and I love how my app just decides to freeze on me as I'm trying to give you guys these live updates. But when you get to the 5th inning and you're down 8-3, right? I mean, you got to wonder how much of just kind of rollover, sets in with this team. And so, we'll see what happens. Still plenty of baseball to be played, in this series and the rest of the way. But just one of those disappointing games, in my opinion. And I'm sure all of Rockies fans' opinions where you just feel like the life is sucked out of you from the jump here. So let's hit a break. When we come back, we will put some finishing touches on the show, review the scores, the pitching lines, and we'll also do a preview tomorrow because the Rockies have one of their better pitchers on the mound and hopefully in a bounce back spot, right? Because you win tomorrow, Wednesday matinee, and you're right back in this thing with an opportunity to win this series and try to carry over some of the momentum from May over to June here on this June 3rd. So let's hit a break. We'll come back and we will do just that right here on the Locked On Rockies POSTCAST. I'm Aniello Piro, back in a few. All right, let me tell you about our friends at Supply House, folks. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get competitive edge by joining supplyhouse.com's free Trade Master program. Every Trade Master gets access to dedicated phone lines, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free memberships at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Well, I live in an apartment. But if I was living in a house, if I bought a house in this economy, it seems kind of impossible. I know my friends over at supplyhouse.com would have us absolutely taken care of. I've referred them to my folks. I've referred them to my friends. Be sure to check them out at www.supplyhouse.com. Make sure you let them know that Locked On Sports and the Locked On Rockies POSTCAST in particular sent you, and away we go. Supplyhouse.com. Be sure to check them out, folks. All right, we'll come on back in our final segment here on the Locked On Rockies postcast, and it's my benchmark segment, which is the 3 strikes, right? So the third strike is going to be a preview and a look ahead to tomorrow's matchup. As I said, hopefully a bounce back spot for the Colorado Rockies against the Cincinnati Reds. You want to see that. But my first 2, we're going to just rehash some thoughts here. Strike 1. Not that there was many of them thrown tonight from Ryan Feltner, but it's the starting pitching. As I said, we know the offense was absolutely dismal. We know that they've struggled, from time and time again. They've gotten blown out, a handful of times, a number of times already, unfortunately, this season. But look, you kind of expect to lose games in embarrassing and big-time fashion when your starting pitcher, this time it being Ryan Feltner, goes out there with 4 1/3 innings pitched, 10 hits, 8 earned runs, and only 3 strikeouts. Not a great performance from Ryan Feltner. His ERA now balloons up to 6.22, as we said earlier on in the day, and they really didn't get that much better for the Rockies. I mean, I don't even think I've mentioned the bullpen just because of how bad it was. Josh Rogers ends up coming in reliever. Ryan Feltner, he goes 2 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 3 earned runs, no strikeouts. So, Josh Rogers not and that's the thing. Feltner got yanked 4 1/3, but is charged with the 8 earned runs himself. And I think that just speaks to even the further troubles here for Rogers at the age to 29. He comes in and just gets absolutely shelled. And, it's just frustrating. And then from there, the third and final Rockies pitcher used in this game was Aniello Piro, 21-year-old starter or 21-year-old relief pitcher. He's 6'2", so a pretty tall, lanky guy, but he also gets shelled. I mean, no one put up a goose egg tonight for the Rockies. Not a single pitcher was not charged with an earned run in tonight's game. So that is the story of the game for sure. Piro goes 2 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 earned runs, gives up a home run. I mean, the ERAs of the pitchers that pitched tonight, Feltner 6.22, Rogers 5.40, and Piro 9. All in all, 9 innings pitched from the Rockies. They gave up 18 hits, 13 earned runs, and only struck out 3 batters. But they didn't walk anyone. I keep harping on that because usually when you give up 13 runs, there's probably a walk, 2 or 3 probably mixed in there. That was not the case for the Rockies tonight as they lose that game 13-3. But again, pitching, and more bad pitching. That was the story of the game. So that's my strike 1 as we get ready to wrap here on the Locked On Rockies postcast. My second strike has got to be the offense. And let's talk about some of the positive. As we said, Brendan Rodgers with a home run. Ezequiel Tovar gets a double. Elevis Montero with an RBI. Brenton Doyle, who's a big-time player. I mean, that's the thing. Between Doyle, Nolan Jones, who's not playing right now, and Ezequiel Tovar, those are 3 pretty good players, that have face of the franchise. I don't want to say face of the franchise potential, but, guys that fans can fall in love with, guys that fans can support, right? I mean, I always think back like Nolan Arenado. It took Nolan Arenado 3 or 4 years of playing with the Rockies before he became absolutely beloved by the Rockies fans and really just a household name at the major league level, right? Look at Charlie Blackmon. These guys were on some struggling teams early on in their careers before it all kind of came full circle. They were competitive for a couple of years there, made the playoffs 2 years in a row. And so I guess the point that I'm trying to make is between Ezequiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle, and Nolan Jones, when Jones gets back and being healthy, I mean, those are 3 guys with a pretty bright future in this league. And there's no reason, in my opinion, that they should be playing for anybody but the Colorado Rockies coming up here in the next couple of seasons. So we'll see what happens there. But all in all tonight, the offense was just not able to come up clutch. Again, we said it, 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position, 7 runners left on base. And it was just, it was frustrating. And what's interesting is 2 of the Rockies' 3 runs tonight came with 2 outs. So there was actually some clutch hitting as I kind of put my foot in my mouth, just not enough of it. Montero and Stallings, both of the runs that they were able to drive home, coming with 2 outs in this game. It was just the struggles beyond that of stringing together hits, which is normally not that big of an issue for the Rockies, but that ended up being the case here tonight. So, like I said, 2 for 7 in runners in scoring position, just not able to string together hits. That is not exactly a recipe for success. So that's my strike 2. Rockies offense has to be better, has to be more consistent, and hopefully that is the case as they move forward into game 2 of their series tomorrow evening. And let's talk about that Tuesday evening game. It is a 6:40 Mountain Time first pitch, and Ty Blach is going to be on the mound for the Colorado Rockies, one of their better pitchers so far this season. He's 2-2 with a 4.15 earned run average, but he's been pretty good for the Rockies, especially as of late. Let's see if I can pull some recent starts here for you. Yeah, against Cleveland. I actually think that was the first show that I did, was after his latest start. He went 7 strong. He gave up 6 hits, 2 earned runs. I mean, that was a good outing from Ty in his last time out. You want to see that continue. And he was actually able to build off of another quality start the week before against the Philadelphia Phillies, one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. And that one, that was on May 24th. Ty went 6 2/3 innings pitched. He gives up 5 hits, 2 earned runs. 4 earned runs combined for Ty over his last 2 starts. So hopefully that keeps it going, as he's one of the best pitchers, starting pitchers for the Rockies so far this season. So again, if Ty Blach can get out to a good start and keep the Rockies in this ball game, I think they're going to have a chance in this one. And then on the mound for Cincinnati, you've got Frankie Montas, the veteran. He started 10 games this year with a record of 2-4, 4.60 earned run average for Mr. Frankie Montas. And let's see what he did last time out. This was against the St. Louis Cardinals. He also went, so he's gone 6 innings in back-to-back games on May 29th, 6 innings pitched, 6 hits, 3 earned runs, and 2 walks in that game, punched out 5. So, should be a decent pitching matchup tonight. And I've always wished that the Rockies, I know it's hard to do this, but get psychological. Get in the head of the other team, specifically the starting pitching. Yeah, you are playing at altitude. Yeah, it's not hard to pitch, or it's not easy to pitch here. It's not easy to play here, right? And because we've also seen, that's the thing, is for every Rockies starter that we've seen blow up in front of our face, we've also seen, road pitchers and starting pitchers, bullpen relievers, come in here and blow up in front of our face as well. And so, like I said, banking on these guys to just implode, whenever they pitch at Coors Field is not exactly a recipe for success. But if the Rockies can do their part, that's always going to be a fleeting thought in the back of the mind of the other team's starting pitcher and the other team's clubhouse just in general. So it'll be Ty Blach going up against Frankie Montas in tomorrow's game, the second game of the series between the Cincinnati Reds and the Colorado Rockies. But that's going to do it for us here tonight, folks. An embarrassing 13-3 defeat for the Colorado Rockies on this Monday night. It's a shame. It was a beautiful night at the ballpark. I'm sure it will be tomorrow as well. But the Rockies, 9 hits, unable to come up clutch with runners in scoring position, unable to string hits together consistently, and just an awful starting outing from Ryan Feltner, and really just an awful performance from the rest of the bullpen along the way. So hopefully better returns in store tomorrow. We shall see. But be sure to hit that subscribe button, guys. We're going to be doing these shows the rest of the way this season for you, the fans. The Rockies dropped to 21-38, and we'll be here each step of the way. We'll have a good time with it. I'm Aniello Piro. Be sure to follow me on social media at Media by AP. And once again, folks, this is Locked On Sports, your team every day. Disappointing loss for the Rockies. That's it for me. We'll be back at it again tomorrow with another Colorado Rockies postcast right here on Locked On Sports. Have a good night, y'all.